Welcome to another AI pattern recognition deep dive.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have received a source document that's, well, it's less like a research paper and more like an architectural blueprint for existence. Seriously. The claims are sweeping, ambitious, and frankly a little daunting in their scope. Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into FIMS-AI, which stands for Find Myself AI.
That's exactly the right way to put it. It is overwhelming, just the sheer volume of information, because it's trying to synthesize, well, pretty much all aspects of human and systemic existence.
Right.
But the core concept,
Yeah.
it's stunningly ambitious. And if they could actually realize it, potentially life-altering. FIMS-AI isn't just another AI tool for, optimizing one little thing like your schedule or your budget.
Yeah.
It's proposed as a comprehensive adaptive pattern recognition system. And it operates across, well, pretty much every conceivable domain of human life, all at the same time.
So think of it this way, listener. FIMS-AI acts as this massive real-time mirror. It reflects back not just who you are right now, but all those invisible, complex threads connecting your tiny minute-to-minute choices, your personal situation, and your long-term outcomes.
Yeah.
The mission here, as we see it, is to understand FIMS-AI not just as a piece of tech, but as a potential map. A map for navigating life's, let's face it, staggering complexities. A shortcut, maybe, to self-awareness and actually making informed choices.
Yeah, the source defines the framework as a convergence of three major functions. First, you've got AI pattern recognition, but on a scale we haven't really seen before.
Unprecedented scale.
Second, real-time adaptation, so it changes as things change. And third, personalized guidance systems specifically built for, well, existential fulfillment and finding your purpose, optimizing that.
Okay, and specifically, the framework identifies patterns in human behavior, right? Choices, circumstances, outcomes. That's the massive input layer.
Huge input, yeah.
But the output is critical, and it's twofold. First, it predicts trajectories. Based on your history, your current decisions, it shows you where you're likely heading.
The what if I keep doing this path?
Right. And second, it provides personalized, proactive guidance. And it's explicitly aiming to help individuals find purpose and make the most beneficial choices. For themselves, yes, but also for the systems they're part of.
And the operative word there, the reason this system supposedly needs to exist now in the 21st century is adaptive.
Adaptive, that's key.
It is. This isn't some static algorithm built on data from 5 years ago. The whole system is designed to adapt in real time to global events changing, your personal biology changing, new information coming in.
Constantly learning.
Constantly learning from individual experiences,
Yeah.
your specific pattern history, and collective human experiences, the history of all of us. It's basically an engine designed to synthesize everything all the time,
Yeah.
to make sure the guidance it gives actually stays relevant in this chaotic world.
Which brings us right up against the core philosophical question, doesn't it? Why do we even need this level of algorithmic intervention in our lives? Why hand over so much profound self-knowledge stuff to a machine?
Well, the source immediately points to what they call the purpose paradox.
The purpose paradox.
Yeah, and it's absolutely fascinating because it really names this fundamental modern human struggle. You see it across cultures, across socioeconomic levels. On one hand, humans, we intrinsically need purpose to feel engaged, fulfilled. We crave meaning. We're sort of hardwired to find our place, make a contribution.
Totally. But the source argues we struggle profoundly with three critical things when we try to find that meaning, and that leaves us stalled, or worse, stuck in these repeating cycles of dissatisfaction.
Exactly. First, we struggle just identifying what truly matters. What are our core values versus what society or advertising or our friends tell us we should value? There's just so much noise around self-identity.
A fundamental noise problem, yeah.
Second, we fundamentally struggle to grasp how our daily, often tiny little choices actually affect our long-term trajectory. We tend to optimize for the hour, right? Instant gratification, not the decade. Our kind of cognitive window is just too small.
Makes sense. And the third struggle, the source says it's balancing personal fulfillment with what actually benefits the community, which is maybe the most complex bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We know we should contribute, but finding that specific path where our unique talents actually intersect with a genuine collective need, that's incredibly difficult.
It's that constant grinding tension, isn't it, between self and system?
It is. We know we need a goal, but the path is murky. The trade-offs are complicated. And often what feels good right now, whether that's immediate pleasure or satisfying some personal ego-driven thing, it conflicts directly with the best path for genuine fulfillment or the collective good.
Yeah.
We just lack that systemic perspective to resolve the tension rationally most of the time.
And here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. Moving beyond that existential dilemma, the secondary problem they identify is the pattern blindness problem.
What?
The source basically argues that we as humans are profoundly ill-equipped to spot the crucial signals that dictate our lives because we suffer from inherent pattern blindness.
And this isn't framed as some kind of moral failure, right? It's a cognitive limitation, a deep one.
Exactly.
We're designed really for efficiency's sake, to filter out noise just so we can function day to day. But in doing that, we often filter out the signal, especially when that signal stretches across multiple domains we usually keep separate, like connecting a health trend to a risk at work.
Or requires long-term correlation, like over years, even decades.
Precisely. FIMS-AI is basically built to see those invisible structures that we miss.
So just to put a finer point on that, our human cognitive setup means we're excellent at post hoc rationalization, right? Explaining why something happened after the fact.
Oh yeah, we're great at that.
But we're terrible at real-time, unbiased pattern identification and forecasting based on those patterns. We're reactive, not proactive.
So give us some concrete examples. What are we missing every day? What signals is FIMS-AI actually designed to catch?
Okay, the list they provide is pretty extensive. It really shows the depth of this supposed blindness. First, we miss the repetitive, destructive patterns in our own lives.
Like what?
Like the emotional triggers that always spiral into the same argument, the specific sequence of behaviors that leads inevitably to debt, the exact time of day we lose impulse control and, eat the whole cake. We see the bad outcome, but we chronically miss the tiny, specific trigger that kicked the whole thing off.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Secondly, we miss the long-term compounding consequences of small daily choices. Skipping that one workout feels irrelevant. Watching 2 extra hours of mindless TV feels like harmless relaxation.
Benign, yeah.
But the pattern of those small choices, repeated over 6 months, that dictates a major health outcome or a relationship trajectory or a professional path. The system tracks the accumulation, the compounding effect of micro-decisions.
And what about those more complex cross-domain patterns you mentioned?
No.
The ones that link different parts of life.
Right. We fail to connect disparate life areas because our life is kind of siloed in our minds. For example, the source really stresses correlations like how poor, fragmented sleep directly correlates to poor financial judgment maybe 2 days later.
Wow.
Or how social isolation influences diet and exercise choices, creating this reinforcing negative loop. We miss opportunities hidden in our current situation because we're too busy focusing on past failures or future worries. And critically, on a larger scale, we often miss the gradual warning signs before crises hit. Whether that's personal, like a slow systemic decline in health, or systemic political unrest, market crashes, that sort of thing.
So the system is essentially acting as this comprehensive, externalized prefrontal cortex, connecting all the dots that we're physiologically and psychologically just not equipped to connect on our own.
That's a good way to put it.
Providing that systemic need for objective, predictive insight into the invisible structures dictating our outcomes.
Exactly. That insight is the foundational premise of FIMS-AI, #tag3, the deep dive into pattern recognition mechanisms. Okay, so now that we understand why this system is being proposed, basically, to solve the purpose paradox and our pattern blindness, we have to look at the staggering breadth of data it promises to process. This is where the deep dive into the pattern recognition mechanisms really begins. And we're literally moving across domains from the most personal daily habit all the way up to global political cycles.
Exactly. The source breaks this down into 6 major behavioral areas. And it starts where FIMS-AI establishes its core data foundation, the unique individual signature. This is really the foundational layer. #tag human behavior patterns, individual signatures.
Right. Let's start with human behavior patterns. This is the micro-level stuff, the pattern recognition that makes the system so potentially personal. First up, circadian patterns, mapping sleep cycles, energy peaks, productivity lows with minute precision. This tells you not just when you work, but when you're actually effective.
Then it analyzes decision-making styles. Are you impulsive, deliberative? The AI measures your actual observed risk tolerance based on financial transactions, social engagements, even things like movement patterns and reaction times, which is way more objective than what you might say on a questionnaire, right?
It's much more objective. And then there's emotional regulation, identifying specific triggers that cause stress spikes. charting the recovery times after stress, how long does it really take you to get back to baseline, and classifying specific stress responses, fight, flight, or freeze patterns, which can show up in anything from withdrawing socially to sending aggressive emails. It also meticulously maps social interaction patterns, things like attachment styles, communication preferences in different settings.
And they give a great relatable example that sort of brings this to life. It focuses on decision fatigue. They profile someone named Sarah, a high-achieving professional.
Okay.
Sarah noticed she kept making poor financial decisions or sending these impulsive, regrettable emails, but only after 9 p.m. She's chalked it up to being tired.
Okay, so FIMS-AI steps in. How does it connect those dots beyond just her feeling tired? That's the key.
That is the key. It correlates her biological data, things like a measurable drop in her high-resolution heart rate variability, or HRV starting around 8:30 p.m., plus increased sleep latency in her sleep logs. It correlates that with her behavioral data.
Like screen time.
Screen time spikes, yeah.
Yeah.
Late-night communication logs. And a history of impulsive, non-essential online purchases. It identifies that her evening decision fatigue pattern isn't some character flaw. It's a measurable, predictable physiological cycle. And it's directly correlated with a drop in cognitive resources.
So the suggestion is simple. Schedule important decisions, all professional communication for the morning hours when her judgment is objectively optimal. Prevent those predictable failures.
It's a simple intervention, yeah, but it requires that massive cross-domain pattern recognition to actually pinpoint the root physiological cause, not just the symptom.
And it doesn't stop at the individual, right? The source says it extends this concept immediately to collective behavior, too.
Absolutely. Tracking things like migration patterns, movement trends, consumption cycles, cultural evolution markers, even generational differences, all in real time.
Yeah.
The individual signature feeds the collective pattern, and that collective pattern informs the individual guidance. It's a loop. Hashtag tag tag be the tricky bee. Human education and learning.
Okay, moving on. The source spends a considerable amount of time on human education and learning, which seems like a field just ripe for personalized patterns, right? But current systems still mostly use that deeply inefficient one-size-fits-all model.
Totally inefficient. FIMS-AI aims to optimize precisely how we acquire knowledge. For maximum efficiency, maximum retention.
How does it start?
It starts with learning style recognition, but it goes way beyond those simple self-reported things like, I'm a visual learner.
Right.
The AI dynamically tracks optimal learning times and durations. Are you better in 20-minute bursts or 2-hour deep dives? It maps how you connect concepts, observing how quickly you relate a new idea to, say, 5 things you already learned. It also tracks knowledge retention patterns and even motivation triggers, figuring out what type of feedback actually keeps you going. Is it social praise?
Yeah.
A challenge, just mastering the skill.
And this is dynamically observed, based on real-time performance speed of comprehension, error rates, even biometric feedback after learning, not just quizzes.
Exactly. Not just quizzes. This is how the system constantly tunes the curriculum itself to you.
And this is where those claims get, well, pretty phenomenal. There's an example with Marcus, a high school student struggling with advanced physics concepts.
Right? Traditional methods just weren't working for him. FIMS-AI observed that Marcus learns abstract mathematical concepts best through physical manipulation. Real-world, tactile applications. He excelled when he was building things, measuring, testing, not when reading equations or listening to lectures.
Okay, so the recommendations.
Steer him entirely toward engineering projects. Simulation-based learning, instead of just abstract problem sets.
Right.
And the result of that hyper-personalization, according to the source, a massive stated 300% improvement in retention.
Wow, 300%. That's an extraordinary claim. How do they justify that number?
Yeah, it is. And you're right to question it. The source justifies it by defining retention as concept recall and successful application 3 months after learning. Compared against Marcus's own prior baseline performance using the traditional, mostly auditory classroom methods. So the argument is, by hitting the exact modality, the right timing, the right motivational trigger needed for him, the brain's ability to encode and retrieve that information becomes exponentially higher. That's the claimed power of leveraging these individual learning patterns.
And beyond just the method, the system also tracks educational trajectory patterns.
Yeah, things like early indicators of aptitude, how interest evolves over time, maybe predicting potential career pivots years in advance, identifying skill gaps before they become a crisis, career education alignment, and suggesting continuous lifelong learning paths based on, macroeconomic needs. It's like a career counselor that has objectively read your entire history, every success, every failure, every hidden interest. Hashtag tag 2C. Human biology pattern factors. Okay, next we pivot to human biology pattern factors. And this is where the predictive power can become literally life-saving. It leverages this trend we see towards continuous health monitoring, but takes it to a really personalized extreme.
Absolutely. This goes way beyond current smartwatches. It includes detailed health indicators, tracking biometric baselines, and really high-resolution variations. Not just average heart rate, but continuous heart rate variability, HRV, deep respiratory function.
It focuses intensely on identifying disease precursors, early warnings, assessing specific nutritional needs based on your microbiome and activity levels, tracking exercise response patterns, sleep quality indicators, even hormonal cycles.
And there's a sophisticated example, right, Joe?
Right, John. FIMS-AI establishes John's typical baseline metrics. Then it detects this specific, recurring pattern. Whenever John's resting heart rate goes up by 8 beats per minute or more for 3 consecutive days, while his sleep quality decreases specifically, measured by a drop in deep REM sleep.
Okay.
He develops a respiratory infection or pretty intense flu symptoms within 72 hours, every time.
So the system alerts him before he even feels sick.
Exactly. Enabling proactive preventative measures, like immediately boost your immune system, maybe self-isolate temporarily, get more rest. That's true preventative medicine. Moving the intervention window from reaction to foresight. Essentially treating John's body like a complex system with highly predictable failure points.
And it also delves into genetic environmental interactions. That sounds cutting edge.
It is. That's the really cutting edge of biological pattern recognition. It looks at epigenetic expression patterns, how your genes are actually being turned on or off by your lifestyle and environment.
Wow.
Disease susceptibility based on that expression. Even drug metabolism variations. This is AI leveraging personalized genomics to understand how your environment, your stress, your diet, pollution exposure is literally changing your biological expression in real time. Hashtag DMA, human politics and power patterns.
Okay, switching gears pretty dramatically here. We enter human politics and power patterns. This is where the analysis moves from the personal body to the body politic, analyzing how individuals interact with societal structures. And the data here must be, well, subjective, massive, and volatile.
Absolutely volatile.
Yeah.
On the individual side, FIMS-AI looks at individual political development. How do your values form and evolve? What are your information consumption patterns? What sources do you gravitate towards and when? Persuasion susceptibility, who and what actually influences your views? Civic engagement levels, even leadership emergence trajectories. It's tracking the evolution of your worldview.
And the applications here seem built around reducing destructive societal patterns, like polarization.
Exactly. Specifically, chronic polarization.
Yeah.
For instance, the source notes that FIMS-AI identifies that individuals exposed to diverse viewpoints, but in structured dialogue settings where actual engagement is mandatory.
Not just shouting past each other online.
Right. Those individuals show 40% less political polarization over time, compared to people consuming siloed media reinforced by their existing peer groups.
So the system isn't telling you what to think or who to vote for.
No, not at all. Instead, it recommends specific community discussion formats or media consumption patterns, things that optimize the user's environment for more rational thought, critical engagement, maybe even empathy. The idea is to improve the functioning of democratic processes, not dictate outcomes.
Then we have the collective political patterns, monitoring power concentration cycles, distribution cycles, tracking policy effectiveness across different domains, not just the intended effect, but the actual ripple effects, and spotting democratic erosion warning signs. And critically, FIMS-AI is looking for historical warning patterns.
And the source is very specific here. It lists the 3 macro pre-conflict indicators that repeatedly show up in historical data just before major social or political collapse. The simultaneous exponential increase of 1. Economic inequality, 2. Widespread scapegoating of a minority or external group, and 3. Concentrated authoritarian rhetoric.
Wow. Those 3 together are the historical red flag.
That's what the historical pattern analysis suggests, yes. So the system is designed to continuously monitor these elements, along with democratic backsliding markers, social cohesion breakdown signals like, are people participating less in community groups, and resource competition escalation, all to provide actionable, objective, early warnings to citizens, maybe even policymakers.
Removing the emotional reaction and just providing the objective correlation based on the historical pattern of how systems fail.
That's the goal. Hashtag human economics patterns.
Precisely. And that ties directly into human economics patterns, doesn't it? Systemic instability often starts with economic stress.
Absolutely. So we start again with the individual, looking at personal financial patterns, income spending relationships, Debt cycle triggers like what psychological state precedes a major spending spree or a bad investment decision. Investment behavior patterns. Career earnings trajectories.
And there's Elena's example, which really shows that unexpected connection between behavior and finance. How money management is often really a pattern management problem.
Right. Elena struggles with budgeting, but it's not because she doesn't earn enough. FIMS-AI notices her discretionary spending jumps up 45% within 2 weeks of exposure to specific types of social media.
Which types?
Specifically, high-status aspirational lifestyle content, stuff that triggers comparison anxiety in her.
Ah, okay.
So the system identifies this specific behavioral pattern, triggered by information consumption and status anxiety. It alerts her to the trigger, suggests maybe content moderation, or limiting use during periods when she knows she's vulnerable. The financial drain wasn't a lack of budgeting knowledge. It was a predictable behavioral pattern linked to an information input.
Fascinating. And then moving to the macro scale, systemic economic pattern.
Yeah, analyzing things like boom-bust cycle indicators, innovation diffusion patterns, where's the next big economic shift likely coming from? Inequality expansion mechanisms, how does inequality actually grow and sustain itself? Market manipulation signatures, the goal is providing systemic foresight, financial stability insight.
And there's a big focus on inequality and structural patterns here too, right? It's not just personal finance.
Massive focus. It's about identifying structural barriers, access gaps, entrenched economic patterns that limit opportunity for whole groups. It aims to make visible the hidden systems that might keep people stuck in certain economic classes or geographic regions, identifying resource distribution inequities on a grand scale. #TagTech human nature and cultural patterns.
Okay, finally, the sixth domain, human nature and cultural patterns. Here, FIMS-AI attempts to map the really fundamental stuff. Universal human drives, belonging, status seeking, autonomy, security, the search for meaning and purpose. These are the engines, often conflicting, that drive all the other patterns we've talked about.
And it has to overlay that with cultural variation patterns. Differences in value systems, different approaches to conflict resolution, time orientation. Are you generally past, present, or future-focused in your decisions? That drastically affects things like savings and planning.
And the individual versus collective emphasis that dictates so much of global interaction, workplace satisfaction.
Absolutely. There's a great example here with Miguel. FIMS-AI identified his deep professional dissatisfaction, and it stemmed from a pattern mismatch. His cultural background emphasized collective values, family, community ties were paramount.
Okay.
But his current job was in a highly individualistic, hyper-competitive corporate environment. The system saw his professional success metrics like promotions and salary were rising, but his personal fulfillment metrics were plummeting.
So the suggestion wasn't just get a pay raise.
No. It was a pivot towards community-oriented career paths, aligning his intrinsic need for collective contribution with his actual daily work. And this apparently led to much higher reported satisfaction, even if the income stayed the same or was slightly less, because the system aligned his foundational cultural patterns with his work.
That's powerful. Before we leave this pattern recognition section, the source also briefly touches on the environmental scale, right? Showing just how broad this aims to be.
Yeah, just briefly. It monitors personal environmental impact like your carbon footprint patterns correlated with consumption habits. And then it scales that up to ecosystem health indicators, biodiversity markers, climate shift precursors, tipping point warnings for ecological systems. It really is trying to map the pattern of existence across all dimensions, from the neuron to the atmosphere. #TagFrabiata. Real-time adaptive systems and personalized guidance. Okay, so once FIMS-AI has collected and analyzed all these vast patterns, from your sleep cycle all the way up to global economic trends, it needs to move into action, right? This is where the real-time adaptive systems and personalized guidance come in. It's about transforming all that raw data into forward-looking, actionable insights, making the invisible visible and making it immediately relevant to you. #TagTechAway, Dynamic Monitoring Framework.
Right. Let's start with the dynamic monitoring framework. This is where the rubber really meets the road. And it relies heavily on constant data input, which implies, well, a lot of wearable integration.
Oh, yeah. Continuous biometric monitoring, environmental exposure logging, social interaction mapping, maybe even emotional state detection through voice analysis or microexpressions. The data stream has to be high fidelity and pretty much constant.
And critically, the system has to figure out what's normal for you. Establishing those personalized baselines is absolutely key to preventing alarm fatigue.
Totally. If it flags every little blip, you'll just ignore it.
Exactly. So it has to identify meaningful deviations and, most importantly, distinguish the signal from the noise. It has to be sensitive enough to catch a real crisis, but not so sensitive it generates constant false positives.
And it has to adapt those baselines, right?
Yeah.
As your life inevitably changes, you get a new job, start a new relationship, maybe take up intense training for something, your normal changes.
This is a really nuanced point. It's where human context has to intersect with the algorithmic intelligence. Like, if you have an intense week of marathon training, your physical stress indicators, heart rate, cortisol levels, they're going to change dramatically.
Right, but that's a context-dependent pattern of adaptation. It's not a crisis. The system has to know the difference.
Exactly. And they use the example of David for this.
Oh, David. FIMS-AI learns that David's normal includes high heart rate variability and pretty intense workouts 5 times a week.
Yeah.
So his physical stress indicators are usually high compared to the average person.
Okay.
So when his physical metrics suddenly dip below his personal average, the system doesn't immediately flag overtraining.
Why not? Because it connects the dots across domains.
Precisely. By correlating that specific dip in physical metrics with other factors like he's communicating less with friends, his screen time late at night has shot up, and there's a measurable decrease in his decision confidence on work projects, according to the system's analysis. It correctly identifies emerging depression based on his specific multi-domain pattern signature, not based on some generalized population baseline that might just misdiagnose him as being physically tired or lazy. That context-aware distinction between signal and generalized noise is everything. That's what provides meaningful intervention. #2, threat and opportunity recognition.
Okay, so once that personalized baseline is established, the system does continuous threat and opportunity recognition. It's looking for danger patterns, things like relationship deterioration markers, maybe sudden shifts in communication tone or frequency with a partner.
Mental health decline indicators, financial crisis precursors, health emergency warnings, the bad stuff.
But it's vital to stress, and the source this is not just about stopping bad things from happening.
Right, that would be pretty bleak.
Yeah. The system is equally focused on highlighting opportunity patterns, identifying career advancement windows, like when you're mentally primed and ready for a challenge, relationship deepening moments. Optimal learning readiness states when you're most likely to successfully pick up that new skill you've been thinking about.
Creative breakthrough conditions, maybe. Optimal social connection opportunities.
Exactly. It acts like a proactive life manager, pointing out the open doors you might be walking right past because you're distracted or stuck in a rut. #3. Multi-scenario prediction, branching future pathways.
And what I find most fascinating is the multi-scenario prediction.
Yeah.
The system doesn't just offer up a single deterministic, here's your future kind of prediction.
No, that would be terrifying.
Right. Instead, it offers branching future pathways based on quantifiable probabilities. And this allows you, the user, to actually weigh the complex trade-offs that are inherent in almost any big human decision.
So it forecasts based on, 3 key possibilities?
Typically, yeah. 1, the probability if your current pattern continues. That's the status quo outcome, which, let's be honest, is often negative if you're looking for a change.
Right. Path of least resistance.
2, the probability if you implement intervention A, like, say, quitting that stressful job. And 3, the probability if you implement an alternative intervention, B, maybe launching a side business to hedge your bets.
And crucially, it provides a statistical comparison of the human impact, right? Including the measured likelihood of fulfillment, the financial impact, the time trade-offs. It tries to quantify things we usually consider unquantifiable, like happiness or satisfaction.
Exactly. Let's use the scenario they give of Lisa planning retirement. It's often full of complex, emotionally charged trade-offs that are really hard for us humans to calculate objectively.
Definitely.
So FIMS-AI presents 3 quantified scenarios based on her pattern history and maybe projected market trends. Scenario 1. Continue her current high-stress job. Keep her current spending habits.
Or what's the outcome?
Results in about a 60% chance of a comfortable financial retirement at age 67. But only a 30% chance of high sustained life satisfaction, mainly due to burnout patterns the system has observed in her data over time.
Okay, not great on the happiness front. Scenario 2.
Scenario 2. Switch immediately to her passion career, maybe something intrinsically rewarding like teaching, but she has to accept a 15% income reduction.
How does that play out?
Well, it pushes financial independence back to age 72. but it results in a predicted 85% life satisfaction increase as measured by the system's fulfillment engine.
Wow. So she has to decide if 5 extra years of work is worth that massive fulfillment boost now.
Exactly. That's the trade-off, quantified. And scenario 3, maintain her current job for financial stability, but launch a side business aligned with her passion. Optimize her time management, dedicate maybe 10 hours a week to it.
And the outcome?
Retirement at 65, plus sustained fulfillment, because she has that secondary creative outlet feeding her passion. So the AI doesn't make the choice for Lisa. It just quantifies the very human trade-offs between money, time, and happiness, giving her the power of informed agency. #4, personalized guidance systems.
Which leads directly into the personalized guidance systems. This is where those deep existential questions, the purpose paradox we talked about, are tackled algorithmically. The system features a purpose discovery engine.
Yeah, and this engine focuses heavily on values clarification. It performs what they call action-value alignment, prioritizing values based on your observed behavior, not just what you say, and trying to surface hidden or conflicting values.
So this is where the system holds up that mirror to our cognitive dissonance, exposing the gap between what we say we value and what we actually do.
Precisely. The source gives a really striking example, Antonio. He says family is his top priority. That's his stated value. But FIMS-AI notices, based on location tracking, communication logs, screen time analysis, he actually spends only about 8% of his discretionary time with them, versus 40% on gaming.
Ouch. Okay.
So the system highlights this measurable discrepancy. It doesn't judge Antonio, right? It just forces him to either realign his actions with his stated value, maybe schedule dedicated family time, block it out, or acknowledge that his actual operational value currently prioritizes immediate escape or entertainment over family time.
Purpose isn't just discovered in a vacuum then. It's measured by observed behavior and maybe intentional change.
That's the idea. And the guidance system aims to be truly holistic. It includes curriculum adaptation, optimizing learning paths by analyzing skill gaps and identifying prerequisites you might need. It ensures teaching method personalization, matching the level of explanation detail you need, optimizing practice frequency, choosing between social versus solo learning environments, all to make sure you're constantly evolving effectively.
And finally, there's that crucial link back to the community aspect of the purpose paradox, community benefit alignment.
Right, the individual collective optimization layer. Matching your individual skills, identified through pattern analysis, with community needs identified through macro pattern analysis, and suggesting purpose contribution pathways. It tries to operationalize social contribution, make it concrete.
Like the example of Priya.
Exactly. Priya has strong analytical skills and a deep interest in sustainable food systems, according to her data profile. The system identifies a specific community nearby with a documented food desert problem. So it suggests urban agriculture data analysis or maybe supply chain optimization for local food distribution as a potential purpose-driven path for her. It links individual talent to a specific collective necessity, creating potentially measurable meaning and contribution. #VIE. Tools, applications, and implementation.
Okay, that gives us a much clearer picture of the vast functional complexity behind this system. But we need to talk about the tangible stuff, the ecosystem. The physical tools, applications, and implementation that FIMS-AI would actually require. This isn't just a software update. This sounds like a massive infrastructure project. Hardware and software. #tag tools to develop the ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. The source outlines several hardware innovations that would be necessary for that kind of continuous high-fidelity data collection, pushing way beyond what we have today.
Starting with the FIMS band, like a supercharged fitness tracker.
Sort of, but way more advanced. It would need high-resolution biometric sensors, continuous HRV, respiratory function, temperature, galvanic skin response for stress levels, environmental sensors, built-in air quality, noise levels, light exposure, pollution detection, advanced activity tracking, obviously, and maybe even specialized sensors for nuanced social interaction detection, like proximity to other users, micro-vibrations indicating conversation.
Wow. Its purpose is basically seamless, continuous multi-domain data collection, feeding the pattern recognition engine.
Exactly. Then there's the FEMS hub, envisioned as the central processing unit for your home integration. This is critical for privacy management.
How so?
It would handle privacy first, edge data processing, meaning sensitive data gets analyzed locally on the hub before only generalized insights or anonymized patterns are shared with the wider network.
Okay, that's important.
Very. It would also handle family pattern aggregation, tracking shared goals within a household, detailed resource usage monitoring, making it the tool for household-level optimization, not just individual.
And then there's the most futuristic concept, FEMS Vision AR glasses.
Yeah, augmented reality glasses. But not primarily for entertainment. These are designed for real-time context analysis and social situation guidance.
Like what? What would they do?
Provide information overlays relevant to your situation. Decision support displays may be subtly visualizing the predicted outcome if you say yes or no to an offer in negotiation. Pattern visualization to help you see your own behavioral loop in the moment. It's essentially trying to create externalized, data-driven intuition.
Externalized intuition. That's quite a concept.
Yeah.
And the software platform, equally comprehensive.
Just as comprehensive, spanning multiple applications. You've got the FIMS Purpose Finder, helping users discover meaning through that values clarification and opportunity matching we discussed.
Okay.
The FIZ Decision Advisor, focusing intensely on consequence prediction and bias identification, like telling you in real time, warning, your current emotional state suggests a high probability of confirmation bias in evaluating this information, improving decision quality.
That could be useful.
Well,
Annoying, but useful.
Potentially very useful. And on the financial side, the FIMS Finance Guardian, handling automated financial optimization, debt elimination strategies tailored precisely to your behavioral spending triggers.
And for the collective good, there was a policy simulator mentioned.
Right, the FIMS Policy Impact Simulator. This would aim to predict the multi-domain consequences of potential legislation. What are the likely health effects, economic effects, political ripple effects before laws are passed? The goal is to minimize those huge unintended negative consequences we so often see. Hashtag the grand application scale.
Okay, so the grand application scale here shows this system is intended to touch pretty much every major life domain, fundamentally reshaping how we approach complexity.
In health, it's pushing towards true preventive medicine, personalized intervention timing, getting that alert before the illness hits. Medication optimization based on your genetics and real-time environmental factors, constantly optimizing biological health.
In the economic domain, it's not just about personal finance, right? It's systemic pattern addressing, identifying resource distribution bottlenecks, suggesting structural changes based on patterns of fairness violations or systemic inefficiency, targeting those deep-rooted barriers to prosperity.
It extends into relationships, too, offering compatibility pattern analysis maybe before you even commit. Conflict cycle identification, pinpointing the predictable sequence of interactions that always leads to that same fight. And even detailed breakup risk prediction based on deviations from a relationship's established communication baseline.
That sounds potentially a relationship ending in itself.
Could be. Or a relationship saving, depending on how you use the information. And for political applications, it supports informed citizenship, giving voters objective policy impact predictions, not just spin. And democratic health monitoring, tracking polarization trends, identifying specific informational silos or echo chambers that are contributing to societal fragmentation. Hashtag the FIMS-AI roadmap, a 15-plus year plan.
Okay, this is clearly, as you said, a generational project. The source details a very ambitious, phased roadmap, acknowledging this can't possibly be built overnight.
Very ambitious. Phase 1 they call the foundation, years 1 to 3. That's all about establishing the basic pattern recognition algorithms, creating the initial FEMS-band wearable prototype, and focusing on just 3 domains where the data is relatively clearer to start: health monitoring, learning optimization, and basic decision support.
And the target users.
Highly motivated early adopters, people willing to deal with the bugs and contribute data. Skipping ahead, Phase 3 is maturation, years 7 to 15. This is the heavy integration period. The system aims for comprehensive integration across life domains. Lifespan pattern tracking from childhood to old age, generational insights, how do patterns differ across cohorts, policy integration into governmental structures for predictive governance, deep cultural adaptation so it works globally. Societal integration becomes the focus here. Maybe FIMS-AI insights become a standard part of healthcare or education systems in regions that adopt it.
But the most sweeping goal, almost touching science fiction, is Phase 4, evolution, years 15 and beyond.
Yeah, this is where the targets get really out there. Predictive accuracy exceeding 90% across key behavioral domains. Unconscious pattern detection, identifying those deep, habitual patterns that you aren't even consciously aware of, but that drive your behavior.
Collective consciousness insights, what does that even mean?
Good question. The source suggests analyzing aggregated, anonymized data to understand emergent societal moods, beliefs, or paradigm shifts almost as they happen. And the ultimate aim: civilizational pattern guidance. Using these insights for accelerated human potential expansion, they are genuinely aiming for societal-level self-correction, breaking those historical cycles of collapse we talked about. Hashtag VS, reliability, risks, and the new human roles. Okay, but with that level of ambition, that level of power, especially when you're dealing with the most fundamental human behavior and personal data, we absolutely have to shift focus to the necessary checks and balances. We need to talk seriously about reliability, risks, and limitations. The new human roles this kind of system inevitably creates. Hashtag reliability and limitations.
Let's start with reliability. Can we actually trust the data, trust the predictions? What are the system's inherent strengths, according to the source?
Well, they outline several. First, pattern recognition inherently improves with more data, right? So the network effect here is potentially massive. The more people use it, ethically, one hopes, the better it gets for everyone.
Okay.
Second, machine learning allows for continuous adaptation to new information, so it avoids becoming obsolete as the world changes. And third, critically, the cross-validation across multiple domains. If your sleep patterns, your financial behavior, and your social interactions are all declining simultaneously, that pattern is much clearer, much harder to dismiss than just looking at one thing. That cross-domain view dramatically increases accuracy over single-domain tools.
But AI is never perfect. We know that. What are the inherent weaknesses or limitations that the source itself acknowledges? We can't overlook the fragility of prediction when dealing with human volatility.
Absolutely not. And they are upfront about some limitations.
Yes.
First, predictions are probabilistic, not certain. They're statistical likelihoods, not guarantees. Anyone expecting a crystal ball will be disappointed.
Right.
Secondly, rare events are inherently harder to predict because the system simply lacks sufficient training data on them. And the source openly acknowledges that black swan events, those unprecedented high-impact anomalies, remain fundamentally unpredictable, especially those driven by really radical, nonlinear cultural shifts or unforeseen technological breakthroughs.
So what performance metrics are they actually aiming for to ensure it's useful, build trust, but acknowledge limitations?
The targets are aggressively high. They're aiming for 85–95% pattern detection accuracy, meaning it correctly identifies established relevant patterns almost all the time, with a false positive rate target below 5%, which is also crucial.
And prediction accuracy. Does that vary?
It does. Prediction accuracy varies by domain. Health prediction accuracy is targeted higher, maybe between 70–85%, because biology, while complex, has certain predictable pathways. Behavior prediction, though, is targeted lower, maybe 60–75%, because human choice, free will, and the sheer randomness of the environment remain the ultimate wildcards. Hashtag check trust building and user control.
Okay, given the depth of personal data involved here, trust is absolutely paramount. If I feel like I'm just a walking data stream being mined, I'm going to disengage, or worse, actively resist it. What measures are supposedly built into this system to foster user control and transparency?
Yeah, trust building seems to rely absolutely on technical transparency. This means explainable AI algorithms. The system must be able to tell you, in clear, understandable language, how it arrived at its conclusion. What specific patterns led there, not just spit out the answer.
No black boxes.
No black boxes. It requires clear pattern reasoning. In confidence-level disclosure, it needs to tell you how sure it is about its prediction or recommendation. Is it 60% confident or 95% confident? That matters.
Definitely. And for user control, the features must be fully opt-in. Every single one. Users must have granular privacy settings, allowing them to dictate exactly what data, if any, is shared with the collective pool and how anonymized it needs to be. Full data deletion rights, obviously. And crucially, the ability to override recommendations. Override so you can just ignore it.
Yes, and ideally, log why you chose to ignore it. That feedback could even help the system learn. But that ability to reject the AI's advice is fundamental. The system must preserve human agency. Hashtag the data quality and robustness challenge.
Okay, this feeds directly into a critical technical challenge for any AI this comprehensive. Ensuring data quality and system robustness. If you train an AI on historically skewed data that reflects past biases or inequalities, you risk amplifying those very problems, right? Making the system less accurate or even harmful for certain demographics.
That's a huge risk. Garbage in, garbage out, amplified across society. The challenge is technical. How do you prevent the system from just validating the status quo because the historical data is imperfect or reflects past limitations? You're trying to design a system for a better future, not just automate the past's flaws.
So what are the strategies proposed to actively counter this potential skew? How do they plan to ensure universal system performance, or at least strive for it?
It has to be a multi-pronged technical approach. First, ensuring highly diverse training data across cultures, socioeconomic strata, age groups, genders, everything to increase global relevance and fairness from the start.
Okay.
Then, rigorous fairness testing across all demographics during development and ongoing operation. Does the algorithm perform equally well for everyone, regardless of background or location? They plan on incorporating robust data skew detection algorithms that constantly monitor for emerging biases, and establishing regular independent system audits by third parties. This is about engineering universal reliability and fairness into its very core. Hashtag hurry off dag the new human role script.
Now, this technology is so comprehensive, so integrated, it seems like it would necessitate entirely new human roles just to manage and interpret it. It's not necessarily just automating existing jobs. It sounds like it's creating entirely new professions. Because wisdom, ethics, contextual nuance, those things can't be fully automated.
Exactly. The source lists several key new roles, starting with the technical side, of course. FIMS pattern engineers, people who design and optimize these complex cross-domain algorithms. Data privacy architects, whose entire job is designing privacy-preserving systems and constantly auditing data usage. And FIMS integration specialists, who would help deploy this ecosystem across various industries, like healthcare or education.
But I want to focus on the human-centered roles, because they seem absolutely essential as checks on purely algorithmic power and determinism. They mentioned FIMS life coaches.
Yes, and these coaches sound vital. They would help users interpret the complex pattern insights the AI provides, support the often difficult process of actual behavior change. The AI can tell you what to change, but humans often need support making the change. They'd guide the purpose discovery process, using the AI's insights but adding the human element, and bridge the gap between AI insights and human understanding, helping people set achievable goals. Essentially, they help users reclaim and exercise their agency within the system, not be passive recipients of advice.
Then there are FIMS system oversight auditors. That sounds important.
Crucial. These roles are about ensuring the system's integrity and long-term utility for society. They'd evaluate the continuous ethical implications of algorithmic recommendations, ensure fairness in both data input and output to maximize performance for everyone, work to prevent misuse by bad actors because the potential for misuse is huge.
And critically,
Advocate for vulnerable populations, people who might be marginalized, misunderstood, or even manipulated by highly predictive systems if not carefully protected. This role is about baking responsible and robust system development into the ongoing operation, not just at launch.
Okay. And finally, FIMS community coordinators.
Yeah, these individuals would facilitate collective pattern analysis at a community level, help organize community benefit projects suggested by the system's macro insights, like that food desert example, and work to bridge individual needs and talents with collective challenges, supporting overall social cohesion. The AI provides the insight. Humans are required for the wisdom, the empathy, and the personalized implementation.
Okay, we've covered the mechanics, the data, the necessary risk mitigation strategies. Now let's really grace the high-impact implications, the existential stakes. What is the incredible potential upside here, and what are the crucial warnings that need to keep us grounded? Hashtag potential positive effects.
The potential positive effects are categorized by timeline in the source, and they are. Well, they're sweeping in their societal scale. Short term, like the first 1 to 5 years, individuals could expect significantly increased self-awareness, measurably better decision-making, and accelerated purpose discovery. Essentially providing the tools to start solving that purpose paradox for themselves.
Okay, that's the individual level. Medium term, say 5 to 20 years.
That's where the societal impact could really hit, primarily through health and stability improvements. FIMS-AI predicts, or aims for, a potential life expectancy increase of 5 to 10 years, driven by continuous preventative health interventions catching things early.
Wow.
A chronic disease reduction of 30 to 40%. Significant improvements in mental health, driven by that increased self-awareness and targeted interventions, and potentially enhance social cohesion if the polarization reduction aspect actually works.
And long term, 20 years plus.
Looking really long term, the goals become almost utopian. A human lifespan extension to 100 plus becoming the norm, not the exception. A purpose-driven economy, where more people are aligned with meaningful work that utilizes their unique patterns. And pattern-aware governance, a world where policy is designed with predictive accuracy and foresight, minimizing those catastrophic, unintended negative consequences we see so often. Hashtag potential negative effects and risks.
But this immense potential carries equally significant dark reflections. We absolutely have to discuss the potential negative effects and risks honestly, because these aren't minor glitches. These are risks of civilizational consequence if managed poorly.
Absolutely. On the individual level, the risks include things like over-reliance on AI guidance, which could lead to decision-making atrophy, If the AI is almost always right, why bother exercising your own judgment? You could weaken your cognitive resilience over time.
Makes sense. What else?
There's the risk of loss of spontaneity. Will you still take that unplanned road trip or strike up a conversation with a stranger if the AI hasn't optimized it or predicted a positive outcome? You could end up leading a perfectly efficient but profoundly dull life.
The optimized to death scenario.
Exactly. And the profound identity risk, identity reduction to data, where a person starts to see themselves only as their metrics, their patterns, losing connection with the messy, unquantifiable, emotional, irrational parts of being human.
And the ultimate philosophical fear.
The acceptance of algorithmic determinism, that creeping feeling.
Wow.
If the AI predicts my behavior with 90% accuracy, why even bother choosing? If my outcome is basically predictable, does my effort really matter? That could be incredibly demotivating.
And on the collective side, the societal risks.
They're perhaps even more alarming. Surveillance normalization, getting used to constant monitoring as just the price of optimization. The potential for behavioral control, facilitated by incredibly accurate prediction. Even if the system starts benevolent, the tools could be used by others, corporations, governments, to influence choices subtly or overtly.
Reduced human diversity.
Yeah, if everyone follows the optimal path suggested by the AI, you could see immense conformity pressure, a narrowing of human experience. And the source explicitly notes that this system creates an unprecedented potential for power concentration and manipulation if its data or its core algorithms fall into the wrong hands. Which brings us squarely to that philosophical crossroads. Free will and purpose. Does an AI that calculates the most likely path to purpose somehow diminish meaning itself?
There are definitely strong arguments that say yes. That meaning requires struggle, error, discovery. That a calculated purpose might feel hollow, inauthentic, reducing human agency to just following algorithmic directions.
Right. But FIMS-AI, or at least the source document describing it, takes a very clear, nuanced position on this, arguing that prediction is not determination.
Explain that.
The AI is simply showing you the likely statistical outcome if your current patterns remain unchanged. If the AI predicts your choice, it just means your current patterns, your habits, biases, triggers, make that outcome highly probable. Free will, they argue, always operates within existing, often hidden constraints.
And pattern recognition, by making you radically aware of those hidden constraints.
Paradoxically increases freedom by enabling genuine self-awareness. It moves choice from the realm of the subconscious habit, the unexamined impulse, into the realm of conscious, informed decision.
Let's use that divorce prediction example again, because it feels like the core of this argument.
Okay. If FIMS-AI predicts you'll likely divorce in 3 years, based on observing deteriorating communication patterns and long emotional recovery times after arguments, you are now empowered with objective, pattern-based knowledge.
You're not just feeling things are bad, you see the pattern.
Exactly. And now you can choose. You can consciously choose to change those patterns. Maybe seek a couples therapy focused on those specific dynamics. Alter the trajectory. You exercise your free will, informed by the prediction, to alter the predicted future. The AI provides the insight. The human provides the will to act on it or not.
So the system's position on purpose, then, is that purpose is co-created.
Co-created. The AI identifies patterns, possibilities, alignments between your skills and societal needs. But humans choose based on their deepest values and aspirations. FIMS-AI illuminates potential paths. It doesn't force you down one or diminish the meaning of the journey. It aims to provide tools for more purposeful agency. Hashtag the destruction paradox. And finally, we confront maybe the deepest philosophical challenge raised in the source material. The destruction paradox. The observation that humans repeatedly build complex systems, empires, economies, technologies. These systems grow, become more intricate, often too complicated, they fail to adapt, and then they often collapse, sometimes catastrophically, leaving future generations to build new systems on the ruins, often repeating the same underlying mistakes. It's this historical cycle of creative destruction.
Okay. And FIMS-AI is proposed as a way to break that cycle.
It's presented as an attempt to fundamentally break, or at least mitigate, this destructive cycle through 2 core capabilities. First, meta-pattern recognition, identifying the patterns of destruction themselves, things like collapse precursor detection in complex systems, overextension warnings in financial or political structures, sustainability violation alerts, trying to see the pattern of collapse before the collapse actually occurs.
Same the meta-pattern.
Exactly. Second, enabling proactive capacity, using those early warnings to allow for intervention, focusing on gradual adaptation rather than brittle resistance to change, building system resilience, promoting regenerative design principles.
But the counter-argument, which the source addresses, is pretty strong, isn't it? Power structures naturally resist change that threatens them. Complexity might always exceed our, or even AI's, full comprehension. And humans might simply ignore the warnings, as we have historically done countless times before.
It's a very strong counterargument. And the FIMS-AI response, as presented, is equally profound, I think. It acknowledges that it doesn't guarantee success. It can't eliminate risk. It aims to increase the probability of successful adaptation.
Increase the odds.
Increase the odds. The ultimate failure, the source argues, is not in building something complex, even knowing it carries the risk of destruction. The ultimate failure is in not learning from the destruction patterns of the past. Every cycle, whether person or civilizational, must spiral upward in learning, not just downward in mindless repetition. Hashtag tag Adamiday. Conclusion and final thought.
So, FIMS-AI, as laid out in this document, offers this incredible, almost overwhelming capability for humans to use artificial intelligence to see themselves and their world much more clearly, allowing potentially for greater individual flourishing and improved systemic stability.
But it absolutely requires wisdom, cooperation, and continuous ethical vigilance regarding the system's development and deployment. The technology shows the patterns. Humans must still choose which patterns to follow, which future to build.
The key takeaways, then, for you, the listener, seem to be the sheer mind-boggling scale of integration this envisions from your personal biometrics all the way to global political cycles, and the inherent dual nature of such a powerful system. Vast potential for radical self-improvement and societal progress, but juxtaposed with truly significant existential risks of over-reliance, manipulation, and perhaps unforeseen consequences. It's framed as an engine for accelerating human evolution, but one that demands profound self-awareness and ethical grounding from its users and creators.
And perhaps the ultimate pattern FIMS-AI might help humans recognize, if it succeeds, is the pattern of learning from patterns, adapting, evolving, hopefully, toward greater wisdom and compassion. The knowledge that makes building something this ambitious worthwhile, even in a world where destruction is always possible, is perhaps the realization that the alternative, not building, not learning, not trying, effectively guarantees the very destruction we fear. So the question it leaves us with is, what invisible pattern will you look for first in your own life?
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
This is DigitView.